Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Jones?
Dr. Jones, the eminent archaeologist.
Hard to believe it.
Now, what shall we talk about?
Welcome once again, IndyCast listeners and further fans, to the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. My name is Joe Stuber.
And I am Keith Voss. And not only Further fans, Dark Horse fans.
Fans.
We got a special treat for you guys today.
Keith, we turned one around like back-to-back IndyCasts.
Yes, we
How
did.
did we do that?
I don't know. But we did it.
We did it. Are you guys sick of hearing us by now? Look, I don't know. Back-to-back Further Adventures. We did it. We pulled it off. But we couldn't do it, like you said, without our special guest today. We have somebody very, very cool joining us on the IndyCast today. He's in the Raven's Nest.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
he is a big part of the Indiana Jones comic book world. He brought us one of the coolest Indiana Jones adventures with Indiana Jones and the Tomb of the Gods. We're going to waste no time today. Our special guest is at the VIP table in the Raven's Nest right now. So, Joe, what do you say? You want to head on in, grab a drink, and let's talk with Indiana Jones artist Steve Scott.
Keith, our guest on the IndyCast today, he has put pen and pencil to paper to bring to life such characters as Batman, the Justice League of America, the X-Men, the Hulk, and for fans of Indiana Jones, he is the artist on the most recent Indy four-color adventure, Tomb of the Gods. A big IndyCast welcome to Steve Scott. Steve, welcome to the IndyCast. Welcome to the Raven's Nest. Do you want a drink?
Hey, let's have a drink, man. It's midday here right now as I'm recording this, so, my drink right now is just some Coca-Cola for some caffeine value.
It is 5 somewhere.
Hey, Steve, they always say it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? It's 7 o'clock at night here in Austria, so, I'm ready to go.
Man, in Austria. I was really throwing people for a loop not long ago. I did a month-and-a-half tour in Europe, and every time I talk to my friends, I'm like, guys, it's 12 midnight here, or 1 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah.
They might have caught me. They might have caught me with a couple of beers under the belt too. Hey, it's a pleasure to be on the show. By the way,
pleasure to have you here. And look, here, I don't know if you remember this or not. I'm from Pennsylvania originally. Was in Memphis, Tennessee for a little while. Moved to Ohio in 2011. I went to the Mid Ohio Con in 2011. I just moved to Ohio. Keith and I had just started this segment on the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones on the IndyCast. I talked to you there, and I mentioned to you, I'm like, hey, love to have you on the show when we do the Dark Horse years. I apologize. I thought we'd get through the Marvel years a lot quicker. It took us 4 years.
It only took us 4 years. Sorry.
Well, I apologize as well. You wanted to get me a little bit earlier than this, but again, I was tied up with some other things.
No.
Some of it was, again, that month-and-a-half long travel. But I'm glad to be here now.
It was
Definitely
4 years since I told you about it. Well, hey, look, what have you been up to in 4 years, Steve Scott? Bring us up to speed. How's your life in the last 4 years?
Man, everything's been fantastic. Matter of fact, I'm heading back up to Ohio in a couple of weeks. So,
Yes.
or actually, I think next weekend I'm heading up to Gem City Con, Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, that's right below me. Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I might have to touch base with you again. I've got all my Indiana Jones Tomb of the Gods signed by Steve Scott. Full nerd alert.
Oh, I don't yet, so I'm going to have to send you mine, Joe, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. Steve, get you some autographs from Steve Scott. Yeah, mine are official now. Hey, let's talk comic books, Steve. First comic book you ever read?
Oh, that's easy. It's Hulk issue 200. I had to find out why the Hulk was not raging and he was wearing a helmet on his head. I just had to read it to find out.
I don't remember. Why was he wearing a helmet?
Well, they changed him down. He had to go inside of Talbot's mind, in which case he fought all of the things that were in Talbot's mind, which included every villain that the Hulk has, gone up against in the past.
Okay.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Is the Hulk your favorite character? If not, who is your favorite character?
Oh, Indiana Jones is way up there.
See?
He knows his audience.
Already,
You salesman. You salesman, you.
No, well, seriously, I've got several favorite characters. I mean, I'm a pop culture junkie, like most of us are. I love Indiana Jones. Yes, I couldn't get the theme song, the music out of Indiana Jones out of my head while I was drawing it. From the time I started reading the script, I'm going dun 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 dun. Every time I'm working. But no, Hulk. I love Marvel Comics Hulk. I love drawing monsters and science fiction, and to me, he's a science fiction-oriented gamma ray monster. So, I love drawing Hulk. I love drawing X-Men. Over at DC Comics, Green Lantern, Batman, especially Batman. So I've been really lucky, man. I'm a comic book pop culture nerd geek, and I've been fortunate to get my hands in a little bit of everything. Currently working on The Shadow for Dynamite Entertainment.
Oh, wow. So, I love these characters from back in the day, too. I mean, you got these almost like these pulp characters. I mean, Indiana Jones fits completely into that mold.
Oh, yeah, man, big time. He's like Doc Savage, if you will.
Doc Savage, yep.
Doc Savage.
Flash Gordon, all these
Tarzan.
All these guys from back in the day. Did you have growing up? Did you my first memories? I remember the Spider-Man animated TV show, syndication. I remember the Batman, Adam West. Did you have a favorite growing up that sort of brought comics to life for you? That you're like, okay, this is very cool.
Okay, well, when I was a little kid, they were playing the reruns in the mornings of the old 1968 or late mid-60s Marvel Comics stuff. Like, when Captain America throws his mighty shield, and they took, and what I really liked about those, and again, they reran them. I wasn't alive and kicking when they first made these things, but when they reran them in the mornings, and I could watch them before I went to school. And, I recognized, by this time I was already a comic book junkie, so I recognized that they took a lot of the artwork directly from the comic books, and then they did, like, flash animation of its time, very simplified animation. And I just like, oh, cool, that's a Kirby drawing, and that one's Don Heck. I mean, I was able to point out all the artists, and it would be within a given scene that would change art styles, but I really dug it, man. It was pretty fun.
Well, it's interesting you say that. That was in the interview with Stan Lee I had. He mentioned specifically that. It wasn't the greatest animation, but they were doing our stories. They were bringing those stories to life. And that's what he loved about it at the time.
Exactly, they were. And now you can see people doing flash animation online, to do, it's a simplified form of animation. And I even did some flash animation for the TV show Smallville and provided the animation line art drawings for them, and then they animated that. But it was exactly the same as those 1960s cartoons.
Let's talk a little bit about that Smallville. Was it Legends, Justice, and Doom?
Yeah, it was Justice and Doom. That's exactly what it was. I did episode 2, and I think episode 5, the very last one. I want to tie it all in. So I got to draw like the JLA walking away from the exploding building and neat little things like that. Again, I'm a uber geek, so I was really... I was running so busy drawing that, too. I remember drawing that scene, but I was also just starting to work at Marvel, doing Marvel Adventures work. I think... Magic. It was the character Magic. I had to do a story of her, so I was drawing it for Marvel along with that at the same time. And so, sometimes you have to rush doing this stuff that you don't have time to really engulf it and say, oh, God, I can't believe I'm drawing this. It's so much fun. No, it's like, okay, I got to get this done,
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, they're on the DVDs and Blu-rays too, right? These little sort of flash animations. Yeah. These are like panels brought to life. We saw all the superheroes coming out on Smallville. It was like Aquaman and Green Arrow and all these guys. So you kind of did your take on it and like how they infiltrated Lex Luthor's sinister secret lair.
Yeah, it was set up. It was also a Toyota Yaris commercial. Pretty much it was sponsored by Toyota Yaris, man. But I had to make sure I got that Yaris just right. But no, it was a lot of fun. It was season 6 of Smallville. I was about to say JLA. season 6 of Smallville, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I even had one little scene. I had Christopher Reeve in there, when he was on the show for a brief time. There was a big meeting, a board meeting, and I got to draw him in there too. But again, my geek nerdousness.
But you also did a mini comic for The Dark Knight, which was included with the Blu-ray that adapted the Joker's bank heist. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, oh god, that was a lot of fun. Michael Wright, who was my editor at the time in Creative Services DC, got me that gig. And Christopher Nolan was overseeing the entire project. I mean, he actually did see the work. Originally, it was supposed to be part of a little magazine that appeared in it, but then Christopher liked what I did on it, and he said, look, make this its own separate comic. This is really cool, and give this man a cover. So I got to do a cover for it, and it's the only adaptation done of the Batman Dark Knight. I mean, I wish they had done a full movie adaptation. I would have loved to have had my hands into that, but just doing the bank heist scene was something for me. I loved it.
Why didn't they do a full-blown adaptation?
It just depends. It changes. They did some of the bad Batman movies, I don't know why they didn't do that. That was a good Batman movie.
Yeah.
But, I would dig just drawing an entire movie adaptation sometimes. I used to love those as a kid. Al Williamson was one of my favorite artists, and his stuff, like, whenever he did Blade Runner and Empire Strikes Back, I was like, oh, God, this is like seeing the movie, but I can read it over and over again.
It sounds like he was a big influence on your career as an artist. Were there any other influences?
Al Williamson definitely was, especially when I think in terms of doing adaptations or movie-related genre, TV-related genre. But Michael Golden was a big influence. These days, I look at artists that have passed away, Jorge Safino or Alex Toth. I look at them now. As I grow in what I do, I start a little at saying, this wasn't as smart. Let me think in terms of doing these smart things. You get a little bit smarter as you go along. Hopefully, we do. So I adapt along the way, and there's other people whose work I really just enjoy, and some of them are opposite ends of the spectrum of style. Eduardo Riso, I love his work, and it's a very simplified line art form, very graphic, simplicity. I love his work. He fits along the Alex Toth line. And then I still love, again, the heavily detailed, like Brian Hitch or something, beautiful stuff.
Before we get to Indiana Jones, we've got to ask you about Batfleck. Can you give us, what the heck, man? Like 2013, what did you do? Steve Scott, what did you do?
Here's what I did. Here's what I did with that. I actually was talking to a friend of mine who was going to be,
for our listeners who haven't seen this yet, there was some concept art, looked a lot like Ben Affleck. It mentioned about Ben not wanting bat nipples. You wrote that up, Okay, you run with it.
It mentioned that twice, actually.
Twice it did. Yeah, I was cutting you a break there.
As if once wasn't enough.
There was a friend of mine, Everett Hartsoe, who's going to be doing a movie on Razor. He had some people looking into producing this movie, and I used to work on Razor when I was younger in my career, and I thought, man, that'd be really a lot of fun to do some costume concept designs for the Razor movie. And I thought, well, what would I have fun doing that's not going to be already one for that? Something that I don't want them to look at that and say, I don't like that. I'm saying, well, look, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do a Ben Affleck Batman, and I took that style.
Just coincidentally, right?
Yeah. And I took that style format that DC used already on Lobo. And it got a lot of people in an uproar. About the different changing up on the logo. I thought, well, I don't mind messing with people on this one. I put things on it that I knew would get people stirred up. That shortened the ears, almost made it look like an owl-looking mask instead, or something. And little things I did to it. And it just got me. It got me when it finally got out there, and then people, when it got out, it was like a shock to me how fast everybody was thinking, man, this might be it. This might be the Ben Affleck costume. And it was all over public media before I was ever even asked, hey, is this legit? Is this it? There's one person might have contacted me in that whole time. And by that time, it was already on all these different sites. And I was like,
was it legit or was it not? Had you been approached about that? It's very specific, and you wrote on there that Ben doesn't want bat nipples.
Yeah, that was a funny joke, wasn't it?
I think it's hilarious. But I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm like, did you get a call from Ben Affleck? And it was like, I don't know. It just was a very okay. So you weren't involved in the project at all?
Said, no, bat nipples. No, I wasn't.
Right,
you know, I was involved with doing post-work promotional work for Batman Dark Knight, and I had just gotten through doing some work on the actual Batman series for DC. But no, I didn't have any. That wasn't.
Are you involved in Batman v Superman?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I am not.
Okay.
No,
Just want to clear that up.
Other than the Superman body double.
Well, let's hope you will be involved.
You got the tights?
Yeah, right.
You got your tights?
Let's hope you will be involved in the Batman v Superman comic adaptation.
Yeah,
let's hope that. Cool. That would
no
be
bat nipples.
Yeah, that would be a whole lot of fun. And no, I don't have the tights. I don't think they make them in my size.
No bat nipples, Steve Scott. All right.
No bat nipples, man.
Keith, this is why we're here. This is why we're in the Raven's Nest. Indiana Jones and the Tomb of the Gods. I love this thing. I really do. I love it. And not just because Steve Scott signed my books, which was awesome. But this is cool. We went all through the Marvel years. There was a roller coaster, to be admitted. Dark Horse years, they're a roller coaster. I think this is a pretty solid effort. Steve, how did you come to the attention of George Lucas?
Well, I came to the attention of the Dark Horse editors, and then I had to get approval from George Lucas and his group. It was, one of those things. They definitely wanted a likeness of Harrison Ford and also the actor that played Marcus. They wanted their likenesses, which was actually a first, I believe. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the past, we talk about the Marvel issues. Now, I've learned, because of being in the business now, I didn't know this before, and it stemmed from working on a Kyle XY season connector, like a bridge between season 1 and 2. I did for the Family Channel or something. Anyway, one of those TV networks. I was allowed to draw the actor who was Kyle. Every other actor, they said, do not make it look like them. Make it in the essence of them, because we'll have to pay them a royalty if you make it look like them, because it's not in their contract that they can have their likeness. And, okay, at that point in time, I realized why these artists in the past didn't always do the likenesses, because sometimes they were never actually allowed to do the likenesses. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes plenty of sense, because for a long time, for pretty much every issue of Further Adventures, we never got a good Denholm Elliott. Never. There was a lot of really good, almost dead-on Harrisons, but never got a good Denholm Elliott, Marcus Brody. You were definitely one of the few artists to capture his likeness pretty much perfectly, have to say.
That was the odd thing, because we talked to a lot of artists and they said how tough it was to draw Harrison Ford. So they were definitely attempting to draw Harrison Ford, some more successful than others. No one ever got Marcus Brody right. So maybe he hadn't allowed that.
Maybe not, up to that point. Or he may not have been written in some of the stories, a lot more of the stories,
right.
I don't know.
And he had passed away by the time you got to him, so maybe his estate allowed it.
During the Marvel years, I don't believe there was any of them that actually had made an attempt to do the likenesses. And again, I believe it must have been for reasons of contracts. Hey, make sure it just looks like a generic guy wearing this fedora, because otherwise we've got to pay Harrison Ford's agents this much money. That's probably what happened. What I did to actually get the likenesses down, I remember going through every one of the movies, even including I went through Blade Runner and whatever else I could possibly think of that Harrison Ford was expressive in and had good lighting. And I would do screen captures, and I would sit there at my computer and say, oh, he looks like he's smiling. This is just perfect for this scene. And I'll sit there and I just sketch it. Sketched it.
Well, while we're on that subject, your cover for issue number 4 has a very good likeness of Harrison Ford, and I wanted to know if Temple of Doom, if the shot of Indy in the mines, when the kids push the mine car up, and and then you see Indy, the light comes over his face, and he's standing there. Was that your inspiration for your cover?
Man, you've done your homework. That was exactly that was the exact face. That was the exact scene.
Because that's a very memorable scene for me. I mean, come on, right after Indy, let's get out of here, right? All of us, and then there he is, right there. And as soon as I saw that, I have the collection. I have the the single issues, but man, when I saw that cover, I said, "Oh yeah, all right, cool. I know where he got that
well,
from."
talk about building that cover, because it's not only that, but you've got a lot of the elements coming into play here. And this isn't the one. This is the issue you didn't do the interior art on. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Right.
But the covers. My goodness, it is definitely Steve Scott all over this.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that happened with that issue 4 cover. Tony Harris had done these absolutely stunning, beautiful painted covers. I mean, I got to see, before I was even given the job of doing Indiana Jones, Student of the Gods, I was at a convention with Tony Harris in Macon, Georgia, where he's from. And I saw this big, beautiful piece. He said, "Yeah, Dark Horse is working on something now." I thought, "Oh man, whoever the lucky dog is that gets to draw this, man, this is awesome." Cover looked beautiful. And it turned out I ended up becoming that lucky dog. And in the moment they announced me, I got the script, and so I was having to work away really fast to try to get this stuff done. So I was beating the clock as best I could. But anyway, he did these beautiful covers, but they weren't really based on the script. He was doing covers that would just look awesome, Tony Harris awesome, but he wasn't even really concerned about it matching in any way, shape, or form.
Wasn't that a Dark Horse thing, though, throughout some of the miniseries, where they were more of the iconic imagery of Indiana Jones and not necessarily the story?
Possibly so.
Okay.
I don't know, but see, with me, I got lucky. When it came down to me doing the cover to issue 4, I knew I'd been working on the series up to this point. I knew what was in the series. I knew what the story was about. And I got to do really an umbrella piece that had to do with what was going on in the story we were working on. And I really loved getting a chance to do that. I wish at the time I was also an inker. I mean, I was penciling work, but I was not actually inking and penciling work at the time. I was just penciling. I wish I had done at least all the line art and maybe even the colors if I possibly could have. But I was honored that they used it for the trade paperback because, again, it really represented. Certainly, I don't have the talent of Tony Harris, but it represented the story that was going on in the entirety of the trade paperback.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we talked about getting involved with Dark Horse. We talked about getting involved. Did you meet George Lucas at any point?
No.
Okay.
I've got a friend of mine, Joseph Lee, who works on The Family Guy, and we interviewed him for our podcast. And he's met George Lucas and has pictures. He said he's been to the Skywalker Ranch.
But George has some of your original artwork, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He has first rights of refusal to basically, in other words, to purchase any work done that was for Star Wars or Indiana Jones. And with that, we have to give him a bid on how much we want for it, and then he decides whether or not he really wants it or not. So he did purchase that cover that we were just talking about, and he also purchased all of issue 2. Nice. And according to my friend Joseph Lee, he frames and hangs all the artwork he buys throughout Skywalker Ranch. In my mind, it was all put aside like the Ark. The Covenant. Here's Lucas's storage facility. My artwork is probably, in a crate there marked, hack or something. I don't know.
Well, speaking of which, yeah, exactly. You get to go into that. Did you get to go into the huge Lucasfilm archives? Did you get to be your own Indiana Jones and go in there and kind of raid those archives for ideas or inspirations for your artwork?
Well, no, the only things the editor had to send me was the same stuff Tony Harris used, which were stock promotional photos. I mean, if you notice, all the ones that Tony used were stock promotional photos, and he did a lovely job of them. I didn't want to do that, so that's why I went through. It took me about 2 good days to go through all of the Indiana Jones that I could at the time and other movies with Harrison to procure my reference material. I had a file marked Indy under dynamic lighting or Indy smiling. I had different categories of what I was doing. Profile of Indy, full body shot, Indy walking, Indy climbing. It took me that time to do it because I didn't want to use stock material that they were going to send me and make it, and everybody say, "Oh, I remember this picture from Starlog when it first came out. It was a cover. I don't want it to be recognized as that."
Yeah. Now these are the months leading up to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This was the quote unquote summer of Indy. Had you seen anything from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Did they give you any publicity shots, any daily, anything going in that could be referenced from that?
No, and there was nothing in our trade, in our story that actually connected with it. So
yeah, I mean, it's a different
relevant
era.
for
I
me
just didn't know if there was like a thought to like maybe do a little subtle tie-in to that summer movie.
No,
Okay.
there wasn't. You know, one of the fun scenes that I got to do in the story that I really loved, there's a scene where Indy was talking to Marcus, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, they're taking off and the plane is flying up, you know, and then you had the map scene, you know, with the red line going to where they were. I just, you know, for me it was just a big thrill just to, you know, that Rob Williams, and let's talk about Rob Williams here, the writer of the story. Well, what a phenomenal job. I mean, he's somebody, a talent I'd love to work with again anytime. But, you know, when he tossed that scene in there for me, I was like, you know, kid in the candy store. Like, yay, I get to do the famous map scene.
That's great. Now, I mean, the big question now is, I mean, we're just talking about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Are you a fan of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
What was it now?
Keith, why do you always go down this road?
Oh, come on, we have to.
He goes down this road all the time. You know where this is going.
I mean, you know, come on, it's Indiana Jones, right? You love it, right?
Right.
Silence.
Okay, well, you want to get my interpretation of what I thought of that movie, yeah?
I don't.
That might be a whole other
In all fairness to our listeners, I do not.
That's a whole other podcast. Let's stick to
I'll tell you in a nutshell. And this was wild. You know, at the time, you know, my kids had already suffered through me drawing for 4 months. You know, working on Indiana Jones, and or 3.5 months, and then all of a sudden the movie does come out, and so I take them to go see it. And I thought at first they might have been bored with it. Turned out we left, and all they could do was talk about all the different scenes in it. They had that same excited feel, and I was like, wow. So then I went and saw it a second time, and I was like, you know what? It's a lot better than what I thought it was. I wasn't crazy about how it ended, but, you know, wow, the build up to that point, there's a lot of wonderful scenes that were just exciting as can be. Definitely set in 1950s.
Your kids have taste.
You know what? Perfect. Because
your kids have taste.
Your kids have good taste, because we feel the same way. I mean, it's an Indiana Jones adventure. Say what you will about it. You know, it was great seeing Indy back on screen after all these years. I mean, hey, if you could believe that, you know, biblical objects can melt people's faces off and give you eternal life, and stones can I don't know, do whatever they do, glow, I guess. You can believe that aliens exist, right?
Exactly. You know, I mean, they definitely were, you know, a lot left to the imagination on all of the scenes. I remember, which one was it now where he had to exit the plane on a raft?
Temple of Doom, I said that. Yep.
Temple of Doom, yep.
My line is, once the raft goes out of the plane, all bets are off.
That's right.
So I've said that since 1984.
That's
yeah,
right.
That exactly. You're completely right about that. So, like, you know, so that made it not a far stretch when he survived a nuclear blast in the refrigerator.
He's Indiana Jones, and the guy drank from the Grail. He's healthy as a horse. Come on, he's not going to get hurt when that happens. Come on, he's Indiana Jones.
You mentioned the great Rob Williams. I'm interested in the Dark Horse method. You've worked for Marvel. We know about the Marvel method. What's the Dark Horse method?
Oh, I work from script just like I would if I was working from, you know, at DC. You know, currently I'm working with Victor Gischler, who's also a Dark Horse writer, and he wrote this story for Dynamite of the Shadow that I'm currently working on. And same method. It's a script first, like DC does.
Now, how do you approach a high energy character like Indiana Jones when you're dealing with these still panels? How do you, because your action sequences are great. I love them, especially the shark. We're going to get into the sharks. I love sharks. We're going to get into it. But how do you approach this? Like, how do you break this down and go, I need this to move, even though it's not moving?
Well, yeah, you know, I work a lot of things with lighting effects and also with tilting the camera when I need to. I try to take a bit from the 1930s and 40s comics as well when I did the Indiana Jones comic, because the story was set in 1936. So I wanted it to have a feel with how the panels were laid out, the way they did in the 1930s comics. Every now and then I would throw in a circular panel, if you recall. That was commonplace in the 1930s. They would, all of a sudden toss in a circular panel for whatever reason. And so I would do things like that just to jumble it up a little bit, make it look different than the other comics that were on the rack in the newsstand at that particular weekend. Again, it's just remembering as a kid the adventures myself and panning the camera however I could. I remember having a fun time with the scene of the old guy that was falling down, and we're looking down at the city of New York as he's falling, and his beard's flying in the wind.
That's great.
Little things like that, man, were like a lot of fun for me to draw, and like I call them the Keystone Cops, but I'm gonna have to draw police of that era again from New York here in the story I'm working on. But I mean, I remember having a research, seeing what the police wore at that time, and having them blow whistles to call for more cops, and things that were done commonplace in the 1930s. I really enjoy doing era pieces because it's a challenge for me to bring people back to that era as best I can.
Well, that's a very Cary Gamble thing too. When he did Further Adventures, so we talked about Michael Golden. Cary Gamble did some of those circular panels as well. Were you aware of that series? Did you enjoy it? Did you read it? Did you like their work on it?
Well, with Indiana Jones, I caught the very beginning of the Marvel Comics Indiana Jones that John Byrne was doing. Mm-hmm. Where I was reading those, and then I just started losing track of it. I know Michael did one or two covers for it that were just fantastically fun. Michael always does some great work, Michael Golden, but I didn't continue to catch that. I did just for some reason I lost my interest.
Yeah, it was hit or miss. I mean, they had gone through some. We talked about that. We did for 4 years. We talked about it. Yeah. we went through this, but and we think about some of those iconic elements of Indiana Jones, the whip, the snake joke. When you're coming into that, how much when you get the scripts for those things, how much of that is in the scripting? How much is in your interpretation of that? Because the snake joke at the beginning is great. We get the whip, action at the beginning. This is one of the greatest Indiana Jones sort of intros to an adventure we've seen, even in a movie. I would love to see this on the screen.
I got to admit, now that was Rob Williams, and I've got to admit, when I read this story, I always read things the first time around, and then I go back and I have to start thumbnailing. And when I read it the first time, I said, "Man, this is actually." And I only had the script to issue 1 when I first started, but I said, so I didn't have the whole story. But I was like, "This is already just amazing. This is an Indiana Jones movie right here."
It's almost your own. It's almost your own version of the Paramount Mountain in a way. The Paramount Mountain opens up each film, and you opened up your book with a snake joke, with kind of misleading the reader into thinking we're somewhere else than we are, which is brilliant. It's a great way of opening up a comic book.
Man, I got to tell you, man, that was Rob Williams. I just had to pull off graphically putting it together, but that was his idea.
You guys pulled it off. You guys definitely
absolutely loved it. Okay, and then you got the big mobsters, who were there, and I just love drawing the old mobsters from the 1930s. I had a lot of fun with that. A lot of times, because I'm already having to work from likenesses, I had to do a lot of photo reference shots, and a lot of that was me putting myself in like a suit, just in a baggier suit to like mobsters would wear. And a lot of that was me, the choreography, and taking a 10-second delay snapshot, so I can see how it all looked. The scene would pan out. Once you start committing to using reference and of course being requested to by the director, you have to then continue even on the supporting cast characters no matter what. It's something that you then at that point committed to completely.
Keith, are you ready to talk about two of our favorite things, Indy in snow and Indy with sharks?
Yeah. Oh, you better believe I'm ready to talk about
God.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Two environments we really haven't seen Indy in other than that Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. He's traipsing through the snow, but for the most part, we haven't. You put him in two very cool elements. How fun were those to draw? And give us the breakdown of those two scenarios.
Well, the most fun to me was when he got caught on that raft. When he was actually stuck on that raft, I was like, not raft. Well, yeah, it was a lifeboat or whatever.
Yeah, the
out in the ocean.
lifeboat. Yep.
Oh, dear God. That was actually a blast for me because I'll tell you, obviously, as you know, it turned into a Jaws scene. Yes. It was Indy going up against Jaws in a sense. Which, man, how brilliant was Rob to get that to happen. You know, I was just like, man, I got to meet him at New York Comic Con. I had to thank him for that scene alone. You know, we included the hammerhead shark because they look so darn. Okay, that was also a nod to George Lucas, the hammerhead shark, even though they're bottom feeders. You know, the hammerhead would have never come up, you know, up to the water like that. But it was definitely a nod to George Lucas, you know, the hammerhead.
Nice.
There you go, Star Wars.
So
there
did you
go.
come up with that, or did Rob come up with that?
Yeah, Rob did. No, Rob said
okay.
hammerhead shark. And, you know, I'm already like such a big attention to detail person. I'm like, hammerhead shark would be a bottom feeder. It wouldn't come up. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Creature Cantina, hammerhead. Oh, I get it. You know, if anybody complains about this, who cares? I mean, I was.
See, I don't know that. I don't know that they're bottom feeders. So I didn't get the reference. So awesome.
But, you know, I was so specific with this stuff. Like, I actually researched. I took a video of somebody shooting a Luger, you know, a German Luger gun pistol. And it has a different action release of the shells that other guns have. It's very odd. I went ahead and took a video that I saw and just paused and showed to make sure I can draw the action of that thing accurately, because I didn't want anybody to say, hey, a Luger doesn't work like that. I mean, that's how specific I was in my everything I did.
That's pretty incredible. Were there any other moments like this that in the book that you did the same type of experiments for?
I'm trying to think. Nothing I can really think of. I know that the God, I can't remember her name now. The lead character, the female lead in
Janice.
the book.
Janice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I remember that he definitely wanted her to have long hair, you know, and I know that even in research, you know, none of the women really in that era, 1936, had long hair. They all had shorter hair. So that was one of the only things I did that was outside of, you know, in addition to the hammerhead scene.
Well, you got to go cheesecake with her in issue 3.
Oh yeah. She was man. She was fun to draw. Yeah. I like long hair, so it worked out pretty good. For, you know, anyway.
Nice.
But no, that was about the only thing I could think of. You know, it was just really fun researching everything. The icebreaker ship was very difficult because there's very few references for that ship, that time period, that exist anywhere of an icebreaker. So the bridge of that ship had to be based on just older ships from the 1930s. You know, I had to do that. I could put it this way. You know, I knew that there would be very few people in the world that can tell me, no, that is not what an icebreaker ship looks like from that time. Very few living, so I figured it was pretty safe to make that one up.
What did you use for reference for Indy in the Snow? Because that's an environment we really haven't seen him in.
That had to just be. That was just a lot of made up. I mean, the Harrison Ford.
Did you go Empire Strikes Back?
Dora. No, I didn't even do that.
No,
it was just no, I didn't know. You know, not on Hoth. Yeah, that was a good one. I probably could have done. No, that had to just be made up. You know, I had to look in what the period codes were at that time that used in the 1930s, which I'd already done research on that at the very beginning, if you recall, of the story. Took place, you know, when they found the trinket, you know, the big emblem seal, you know, for the Tomb of the Gods. So, you know, I already researched that, so I was ahead of the game on that one.
Okay. And Keith mentioned the cover of issue 4, stunning, love it. You didn't do the interior artwork. What happened with that?
I was going through a divorce at the time.
Okay.
Okay.
Number one, I was actually given the script about when it was solicited. So in other words, you know, where most of the time you have like a good solid month, or maybe, you know, to make it look fantastic, you know, some artists would be given a little bit longer just to make the first issue just really ring. I was pretty much set to schedule almost immediately, tightly. And then, of course, yeah, all the ups and downs of having to go through a divorce, I just ran behind. I had a choice. I could either do the last issue and have somebody fill in for issue 3, or reverse that. And so the editor really chose to, you know, have somebody else for the last issue and have me do issue 3.
What did you think of Bart Sears' artwork, though?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I've always been a fan of Bart Sears. So
you're happy with how the series ended?
I envied him drawing that last issue because there was such really cool, fun stuff. You know, I mean, I you know, when I get a script, I sometimes wish the rest of my life could just disappear so I can just work on it. You know, because basically it's so involving. You know, when basically we're the directors. If this were film, we're the directors, set designers, we're the actors, we're costume designers. We do everything that is normally compartmentalized within a film. I do all of. And so the outside things, like, I don't know, doing laundry becomes just a hassle once you get a script, especially a script involved like Indiana Jones, where you've got this referencing. I mean, working on The Shadow right now, I spent yesterday thumbnailing out the story and gathering up all my reference for 1936 era of things, from cars to people playing poker.
Incredible. I mean, with the success of the book too, were you guys hoping for a regular series afterwards? Was this going to be maybe the start of a new Indiana Jones rebirth at Dark Horse?
There was not any talk of that with me at all. There was just that, and I know there was something else being done of Indiana Jones at the time. I can't remember. It was more of an animated style art.
Yeah, the small little booklets that they...
it was Ethan Beavers and...
exactly.
And Mark Evanier,
Indiana Jones Adventures.
The digest.
The digest.
I'm sure if the sales were such that it was astronomical, that, they would have said, hey, we'll pay for the licensing to continue doing Indiana Jones. But, all of these things are based on a deal, a broker deal between, the Lucasfilms and Dark Horse to say, okay, here's our deal, here's how many books we can produce, and they're testing the waters or something maybe, or what have you. Not long ago, I did something for Dark Horse where they were going to try to get James Cameron to do an Avatar. I did some samples for Avatar for them, and I think just James Cameron just doesn't want to do an Avatar comic book, period. But it's a thing where you have to show them, give an idea, hey, and tell them why they should do this, and then they come back, and then there's a deal signed where for so many issues or for so many years they have a thing for the property. So they might have been just testing the waters on Indiana Jones.
Indy is with Disney right now, back at Marvel, more than likely. Marvel comes a calling. Would you be interested in doing another Indiana Jones comic book?
Oh, I certainly would. Especially for Marvel as well. I mean, Dark Horse was phenomenal to work with. I love working with Dark Horse. But I would do the same with Marvel, yeah. I'd love to have, especially if I could start off with a little bit more lead time, ahead of time, to where I can make it just perfect for all the fans. I just as I did before, I don't want anybody to come along and say, man, what is a 1950s roadster doing in a 1936 story?
Are you writing it, or can you pick, or would you pick your own writer?
Oh,
I'm giving you the option here.
Oh, man, I would pick my own writer, and I tell you what, man, there's a lot of great writers out there, but I would pick Rob Williams again in art. He just did such a wonderful job the first time around that there's no point in busting that up.
I think Keith and I would wholeheartedly agree with that, especially when we saw the shark scenes.
Oh, that's great. Great stuff. I'm sending you an email later, Steve.
Awesome.
How can we find out more about Steve Scott? Website, social network. Where are you online?
Okay, well, here's where you can find me. On Twitter, you can find me at Stephen D. Scott, and that's Stephen with a PH. Also, I've got a podcast called The PCP Show. It's Pop Culture Palette. Anyway, you can find us at PCP Show, or go to the website, which is pcpradio.com. I do a show with Jason Robbins and Wallace Phelps, and we talk about everything pop culture and geek nerd, if you will.
And we've got Shadow. You're going to talk about Shadow on there. When can we see this?
Well, I just got the script in for this yesterday, and it's working with writer Victor Gischler, and it is for Dynamite Entertainment. It's going to be for an anniversary issue of The Shadow. I don't know all the details yet, other than that, but I do have my story, and I've already begun, thumbnailing everything and doing the research for it. So it's going to be coming out in the next couple of months, I'm sure, and I'm really looking forward to it. Every one of the the old Hulk characters, I would love to get a hand in drawing. I used to do some covers for the Phantom, and just getting now a chance to handle the Shadow, man, that's another dream come true for me. I like old-time radio.
Old-time radio, old-time characters, pulp characters. Indy fits perfectly into that. That'd be very cool if you could do Marvel.
We did some of those ourselves here. We did some old Indiana Jones radio dramas on this very show. I'll send you the links to those. We even adapted a couple of the old Marvel comics. Yeah.
Send me the links to those, man. I love listening to either podcasts or dramatizations, radio type dramatizations while I'm working, because I don't have to look up away from the board.
Yeah, cool. I'll definitely send those along.
Keep your nose to the grindstone and keep cranking out those characters we know and love. Steve, both Keith and I think these issues are stunning. They are. You guys were a great team on this book. Hopefully we can see that continue maybe over in the Marvel wheelhouse. We can't wait to see the Shadow. We love these environments. Keith, snow, sharks, Tibet, plains,
Tombs
Jock.
of gods.
Jock.
Jock. We can thank Rob Williams and the editorial staff at Dark Horse for that one, man. That was effective that I got to draw that. We can thank them.
We have you to thank for crafting a spot on Marcus Brody, though. That is something Keith and I have been waiting for a long time.
Very long time. Thank you for that, sir.
Amazing.
Awesome, fantastic. And if anybody wants to see me, I'm going to be out on the road this year as well for a while doing some the convention circuit.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us today on the IndyCast.
Hey, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
That was fun, Keith. I enjoyed that. I love being back in a podcasting world talking about Indiana Jones. I've been talking about comic books for a while, but Indiana Jones, I haven't talked about Indiana Jones in a while. Back-to-back eps. It's fun.
I was going to say, talking comic books and Indiana Jones is what we do best here on the IndyCast.
That was fun.
Had a great time. Yeah, had a great time. Had a few drinks, and...
Yeah, he was great. I really do love the series. We're going to get into it when we finally get to the miniseries proper. We're going to go all the way through these miniseries. But like I said, I met him back in 2011. Who knew? I thought we were going to get through 34 issues of Marvel's run in like 34 episodes. And then all of a sudden...
4 years.
Yeah, all the guests came in. Guys, we cranked a lot of episodes out of that time.
And it looks like you're going to be meeting him again.
Hopefully. We'll see how things work out. Yeah, you never know, but hopefully things will work out. I can make it down there and see him again. He was very cool. He's an amazing artist. If you haven't seen these issues, go get them. They're amazing. They're spot-on likenesses of Harrison Ford, Denham Elliott. It's very cool. He doesn't do the final issue. It's a very different style. I like it overall, though. It's a very cool adventure. It is a very cool adventure. I don't know. The MacGuffin isn't... I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite MacGuffin. We'll get into that when we review. It is interesting.
MacGuffin.
Yeah.
But like you said,
we'll get into that. Everything hits the fan. Indiana Jones world at the end of issue 4. It gets all crazy.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it should be. Let's be honest. I mean, come on.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
The mini-series start in full next episode. We've got the first Dark Horse mini-series. It's Keith's favorite. It's Fate of Atlantis. We're going to be talking about that. Hey, folks, fire up those PCs. Flip in the floppy. We're headed back to the 90s with a comic book adaptation of the hit video game, Keith's favorite, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Next time on the further adventures of Indiana Jones.